the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
Happy Tuesday, everyone. What is going on to the Davids? Today is the David party in our comment section. So join in if your name is David and let us know where you're tuning in from. September 21st, 2021, a very special practitioner brief today. Dan Hauser will be joining me here in just a moment. You guys see him right there with the luxurious, amazing beard that is donning his face as we talk about the ISC2 Board of Director elections. But before we do that, later today, in just about 2 short hours, Cyber Day Georgia kicks off right here in beautiful, rainy, sunny, 4 weathers in a day type of day in Georgia today. For Cyber Day Georgia, we kick off at 11 a.m. So come and join us in just a few short hours at Atlanta Tech Park. If you have not gotten your pass yet, ping me or use code ATP50 to get 50% off your pass for today. And also, the same pass gets you into Cyber Week Georgia, February 22nd through the 24th of 2022. You don't want to miss that as well. So be there. Now, we've got a big show. If you have not subscribed, please make sure to do so right now. We've got an awesome CISO Talk episode coming to you later this week as well. And now, without further ado, Dan Hauser, good morning, good sir. How are you doing, man?
Good morning. Hey, it's a beautiful day. Okay, it's raining, but hey, green side of the grass, and really enthused by a lot of big changes in my life lately. So it's good stuff.
You're brave because you're running for election on the ISC2, and we'll get to that in just a little bit. I don't want to, we'll get to that in just a minute. Dan's going to be joining me to talk about that. David, good morning to you, and David B, good morning to you as well. Thank you all for being here. Before we do that, though, the show tradition, coffee cup cheers, man. Dan, what are you drinking this morning?
So I have a little bit of muscle milk protein powder whipped into the coffee. So it's kind of like my morning mocha, wake me up. So delish.
I'm on my 3rd double espresso because I've been up since about 500 hours today.
Mm-hmm.
So this is my 3rd. I'll do 2 more before I leave to the event today. So
yeah, this is I would say this is my 3rd cup of Black Rifle silencer. So good stuff.
Love Black Rifle. Well, coffee cup cheers, chai cup cheers to whoever's tuning in, folks. Thanks so much for being here, and cheers. Well, so cheers from Keith and Larry Rosen, 2 of my favorite people. That is a huge compliment from Mr. Rosen. Let's get into our stories today. We'll start with the first one. So talked about Omigod Vulnerability yesterday ramping up. Well, another day, and more people still are not either mitigating or patching this significant vulnerability. Now, here's the thing. This targets specifically the Open Management Infrastructure Framework that Microsoft patched earlier this month, but the patch doesn't really fix everything. It's a partial fix. There's still elevation of privileges flaws that could impact this with the bug. This is CVE 2021-38647. Dan, what's your take on this one?
I think this is going to catch a lot of people by surprise. If there are folks that are monitoring the zines up on patch notification, et cetera, this is cool. But this is going to have a lot of folks in a place where they have no visibility. They're going to like, OMI. Well, I didn't buy any OMI, so I'm good. I'm fine. Right. And, it was a little different when you have a specific, I'm not going to pounce on a vendor and call them out, but you have a specific product you bought as vulnerable. It's a different story. I think this would be a long time fixing. Yeah. So pretty significant, I believe.
Yeah. Here's the deal, folks. If you're looking at this from a perspective of why should I care, it's been in the news ever since it's been discovered. Now, today isn't slow news cycle day, just random. We've only got 4 stories for today's show, but it's a slow news cycle day. But the news doesn't mean that there aren't issues. It means that the focus by threat actors is on these known vulnerabilities right now, because that's where they know they can make the most buck for their money right now. Good morning and cheers to Nick, and good morning to Gino, who's joining us as well. That's a sharp LinkedIn picture, right, Dan?
Oh yeah,
that's a pretty sharp picture, man. That's a good jacket.
That's on point. Yeah,
that is a good looking jacket, man. I like that. Good morning. We've also got, let me see, who do we have here? We've got Brandy joining us as well. Wow. Brandy, good morning to you. And I'm sure I will be seeing a lot of you folks, some of you folks later today. Can't wait for that. We'll move to our next story. So the Capoae malware is going after WordPress sites and installing backdoors plugin. This is brute force, folks. Quite the deal. So it's a PHP malware. It's brute force to begin with. The malware's primary tactic is to spread by taking advantage of vulnerable systems and weak admin credentials. So many of you guys have a WordPress site set up where the admin username is admin, and then the admin password is password, or 123456, or admin 123456. This is what these guys are counting on. The PHP malware, which is codenamed Capoae, which is the Russian word for scanning, is said to be delivered to the host via a backdoor addition to the WordPress plugin called Download Monitor, which gets installed after successfully brute forcing WordPress admin credentials. The attack also involves the deployment of a Golang binary with decryption functionality, with the obfuscated payloads retrieved by leveraging the Trojanized plugin to make a GET request from an actor-controlled domain. They said, Dan, I remember they said, build a WordPress website, they said. It's really easy, they said. Anyone can do it,
right.
They said.
Yeah, so I think this has two insidious issues. First of all, this really will affect small, medium businesses, nonprofits, right? Folks that are run on a shoestring, and build a WordPress site, they said, and also shadow IT. I have personal experience knowing that two really major vulnerability scanners fail to detect admin type of accounts. They say they do, but have you checked? You should check, because you might think you're fat and happy with your vulnerability scanner, thinking you have found all of the admins, root, et cetera, probably haven't. So this is going to also work its way in surprising ways. People are going to get hit where they don't have visibility today.
Yeah, indeed. David Hurley, see you at Cyber Week tonight. David and I are hosting a Jackets and Bourbon event. So, and then we're doing a live podcast. Kevin Gowan over the CISO over at Synovus, Carl Scafidi, one of my good friends at Encom Payments, and I, live podcast. Hit up David if you guys are up for it, by the way, and join us tonight. It's going to be a blast. All right. Before we move on to our next two stories, which you guys don't go anywhere. We're going to do a quick campaign pitch because Dan's running for the ISC2 board of directors, a very prestigious position, and I think you're the only American running for the board.
Oh no,
right?
there are a few additionals that are in there. It is a broad representation across North America, EMEA, APAC. Yeah, I served from 2009 to 2014 and ran on a campaign of needing to add necessary governance and changes that I thought the organization needed, the board needed, one of which was term limits. And having been successful at getting term limits actually established, I termed out. So stepped down happily. I missed it a lot, but had to feel good about actually accomplishing what I had accomplished, and having intentionally stepped away for a few years for all the reasons you established term limits. I wanted to get back engaged in a more official capacity.
So is your version of term limits like Putin's version of term limits?
I don't believe any ammunition is required. No. No, the terms are a full term is 3 years. It could be a partial term if you're appointed to fill a vacancy, but a full term is 3 years, and you can't serve more than 6 out of every 10 So yeah, that's the way it's structured right now.
That's awesome. So now you've decided to run back, get into the groove of thing. So if people are ISC2 members, where do they go to vote? And what's the voting process like for them?
Sure. Voting closes tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern time. And they just need to go to the ISC2.org site, sign in as a member, and they should see a prompt right in the top. There's a scrolling advertising bar up top of latest announcements, etc. And one of those says, "Hey, please vote." You click on it, and please read the bios. My message is not vote for Dan. My message is make an informed choice and vote your conscience. And please look at the bios that are out there. Some excellent people on the slate, and make that informed choice, and get engaged.
Yeah, our community relies heavily on ISC2, right? I think one of the most the most popular cert on the planet is the CISP, and that comes from ISC2. So you can't get a SOC analyst position today, Dan, without a CISP, man. That's a requirement. Don't worry about a Security Plus. Go get your CISP.
Yeah. I don't know the numbers of Security Plus. It's a good question. And I actually got the Security Plus at one point, just to kind of check it out, right? It's a solid cert, but it only gets you so far, right?
Right.
It's at the intro level, and the CISSP is at the 3 to 5 year experience level. Yeah.
And ISC2. Go do so now. Go to ISC2.org, log in as a member, check out the announcements, go vote. Voting closes tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern. And that's really, really important. And Dan, one final question before we move on to our final story here today is, why are you running?
Oh, that's a great question. And I don't want to say that the ISC2 is in trouble. ISC2 has a number of really positive things that they're doing. They're a strong organization. You can see out of on my platform site the number of things I do say, but I do see that maybe there are some course corrections that are required in this continual journey for success. And I think that more membership focus, more focus in Europe, EMEA, and Middle East, et cetera, and APAC is really needed. And the organization has shifted, I think, more strongly to a sales and training organization. I want to kind of get back to the roots of certification, focus on certifications. That's why we're in business. It's one of the initials in ISC2 is certification. So getting back to that root is an important thing, and that's why I wanted to jump in and say I think there's maybe a course correction that I'd like to see made.
I love it. Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. Again, folks, ISC2.org, log in as a member, go vote, make your vote count. Now we move on to what I like to consider is our two leading stories of the day. BlackMatter ransomware is at it again, holding two different companies under the threat of ransom. One is an organization you have not heard of, but is critical, almost like Colonial Pipeline is. It's the U.S. Farmer Cooperative, a $490 million a year organization that's a cooperative by farmers that does R&D. It also is one of the major suppliers of grain, pork, and chicken to the U.S. economy. Their systems are currently down. So remember about 18 months ago when COVID first hit and people ran and got toilet paper? Run and get your chicken and pork and grain right now, folks. If this doesn't get resolved shortly, we could be possibly looking at a disruption in the supply chain. Additionally, BlackMatter has hit Marketron marketing services with a ransomware attack. Marketron has around 6,000 customers in the media industry, a $5 billion a year company. All their services are down at the moment. And if you take a look at BlackMatter this month alone, they've hit a wine and spirits company and an investment banking services provider in the U.S., a vendor of citrus juicing equipment in Austria, a maker of drilling and foundation equipment in Italy, a Japanese technology giant Olympus, a U.S.-based construction company, and a unified communication company in the U.K. Dan?
Yeah. This is significant because this is a play on essentially the futures market, right? And grain, by affecting grain, you're affecting all meat, really, because we all got to eat, and all animals do. Yeah, so the target listed to me is really interesting. These are perhaps targets of opportunity, but it also seems as though there is a specific focus. So some of this may in fact be, did they have a bad experience with citrus juicers? I don't know. Didn't like the particular wine or spirits. This does not seem to be a broad spectrum target of opportunity. This seems to be selected attacks, and going after about, was that 1.5% of revenue ish, 1.4. That's a pretty big hit, and farming is not a very high profit business.
No, it's not.
Yeah, the cooperative peanut butter is out, feast and famine, to be able to ride that wave, and so realistically, is this hitting them at a bad time too? A timing issue with cash flow, et cetera, could really cause more substantive harm than maybe visible on the surface. So concerning.
Indeed. There's significant impact when we talk about this from a cybersecurity perspective to every business. They're not targeting small and mid-sized companies. They're going after mid-sized organizations within the Fortune 500 to maybe the Fortune 2500. You look at Olympus, a huge technology giant. I mean, these guys, there were days when the best digital cameras in the world were Olympus. There were the days. Again, I say that. But when you look at what they're going after, when you look at the size of the ransoms, BlackMatter is actually a rebrand of DarkSide. It's what many believe to be the case. They shut down, obviously, after Colonial. When they relaunched, they said they weren't hitting critical infrastructure. They weren't hitting hospitals. They were kind of having their little criminal code of ethics, like no women, no children with hitmen. The same applies here. This has a significant risk for organizations simply downstream and upstream of your supply chain. Also, when you look at this is very geopolitically targeting the U.S. Farmer Cooperative has a lot of geopolitical impact. DarkSide and BlackMatter are both believed to be of Russian origin. So you can see that as being something where Russia, that has a surplus of grain and has a shambling economy, folks. Don't be fooled for 1 second by thinking that the Russian economy or the Chinese economy are doing any better. China's facing an incredible financial crisis. They've got a loan default when they're at 270% of their GDP. Russia's only surviving mechanism at the moment is the fact that the Moscow and St. Petersburg, their big cities, still hum, but everywhere around there's a ton of suffering, folks. People just can't afford to do it, can't afford to really live well at the moment. There's significant impacts. By hitting a U.S. farmer cooperative, you could be looking to impact the grain market significantly and promote people to buy the Russian stuff as well, which is really, really significant. Also, remember one thing, Russian and Chinese threat actor groups, they operate and they report. They're kind of I don't want to say that they report to the government, but they work in coordination with the government. And there's, kind of like how, and some of this stuff does apply in ransomware attacks. Just with law enforcement recently, I saw that, speaking with several law enforcement individuals who said just that when they arrest some of these guys, they go, well, we went after this because we were instructed in order to keep operating out of that territory and being able to have the protection we need to operate. You'll see CISA and FBI heavily involved in this one. And I think the U.S. Farmer Cooperative, if they don't recover within the next 24 to 36 hours, we could see a real disruption into the supply chain, especially now because it's harvest season. That's one thing for people to keep in mind. It is harvest season. So the timing here couldn't be worse. When it comes to if you thought paying, I paid $3.81 a gallon yesterday for fuel, and eggs are up by 50%. So imagine what happens to basic household items now when this disruption also takes place, folks. So keep your minds, stay focused on your organization. Fix your vulnerabilities is really, really critical as well. And divulge the entire risk. The company will understand if you just explain what I just did a minute ago. When you go to the board and you're talking to them about the downstream supply chain disruption and pricing and so forth, that tends to resonate a little bit more in getting you the funding or the tools and equipment you need in order to successfully defend your organization from these threat actors. Dan, any parting words, buddy?
This hits two of the hot buttons we have, OT and supply chain. And intersection of both. And, I would, if I was the FBI, and I'm not, I would be looking to see at future trading, who short sold grain, pork, and poultry in advance. But, this really underscores the know yourself, know your vulnerabilities, be honest about your vulnerabilities to your board, and create a plan to get better.
Indeed. And folks, write the CFTC. So it's not the FBI. It's the Commodities Future Trade Commission, the CFTC, who's actually in charge of futures with commodities, based out of Chicago. So hit them up and ask them to look over the last week or 2 weeks or month of who's shorting these futures, who's going against the market, because that's probably going to be who you're looking at. Thank you so much for the great comment during nice podcast. David says very strategic attacks on multiple levels. Nick says good morning, everyone. Thank you all for being here. Folks, that's it for our practitioner brief today. In a short 90 minutes, we'll be at Cyber Day, Georgia at Atlanta Tech Park. Join us there. Go to cyberweekgeorgia.com. Go vote for Dan, ISC2.org, and make your vote count if you're an ISC2 member. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. right here. And then Thursday, the practitioner brief, the one, the only, the legend. Roger Grimes is back on the show, man. I have been scoring Roger right and left. I'm so psyched. So don't go anywhere. Thursday, we wrap up the week with the magnificent, one of the greatest people in our industry, really, 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 a guy who's about to publish his 13th book. Roger will be joining me as we wrap up this week's practitioner brief. So until then, folks, have a great rest of your day. See you tomorrow at 9 a.m. And until then, stay cyber safe and go vote for Dan.
Vote your conscience.
Vote Dan.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.